Hello, and welcome to another episode of MBAs Teach Econ. As discussed in the GDP lesson, an economy's output is measured in terms of production. Today we will examine the labor factor of production. In an effort to ensure an economy is operating at its full potential, the government tracks important rates such as the unemployment rate and the labor participation rate. To understand these rates, first we need to understand how to categorize workers. Starting with the general population, we can break the population down into two categories: potential workers and those not surveyed. People not surveyed include active duty military, those who are institutionalized, and children under the age of 16. Moving to potential workers, we can categorize these as in the labor force or not in the labor force. People who are not part of the labor force include stay-at-home dads, students, and discouraged workers. Finally, the labor force can be broken down into two categories: employed workers who have a part-time or full-time paid job, or unemployed workers. Unemployed workers must be actively seeking a job in the last 4 weeks. With these established definitions, we can turn our attention to the pertinent rates. The labor participation rate serves to identify what percent of potential workers are in the labor force, and is therefore calculated by dividing the labor force by potential workers and multiplying by 100. Similarly, the unemployment rate calculates what percent of the labor force is unemployed, and is calculated unemployed divided by the labor force times 100. Now we will turn our attention to three different types of unemployment. The first type we will explore is cyclical. Cyclical unemployment occurs during recession when the current unemployment rate exceeds the natural rate of unemployment. In the US, the natural rate has hovered around 6%. The next type we will look at is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment occurs due to imperfect information between those who supply labor, workers, and those who demand labor, firms. Due to this information asymmetry, firms cannot immediately find the perfect worker to fill an empty position, and the perfect worker needs to find, research, apply, and interview with a prospective firm. This lag between search and successfully securing a job is frictional unemployment. The final type of unemployment we will discuss is structural unemployment, which occurs when the labor supplied exceeds the labor demanded. Minimum wages, labor contracts, efficiency wages, and downward rigid prices are all reasons that the labor market may fail to achieve equilibrium. As we know, during a recession, the labor demand will shift to the left resulting in a new lower equilibrium. But due to downward rigid wages, the wage cannot drop to the new lower equilibrium, which results in a gap between labor demanded and labor supplied. This gap is structural unemployment. It is important to note that this reduces employment beyond the new equilibrium point to a lower employment level. That wraps up this lesson on unemployment. Thanks again for listening to another episode of MBAs Teach Econ. We hope to see you again soon.